The Little Rock National Airport has moved into the modern age since its inception in 1917. As the central hub of aviation and aerospace in the state, it serves over 2 million passengers annually, and it's a major economic generator, contributing roughly $263 million to the local economy. But what goes on behind the scenes, and what does the future of flight promise? I caught up earlier this week with Mathieu, Executive Director of the Little Rock National Airport, and our conversation, well, it took off. I want you to tell me, everybody when they think of the airport, they think of, I'm going to bring somebody, a relative, or I myself am going on a trip. The business of an airport is much more than just the passenger travel. Tell me what all it encompasses.
Ooh, how much time do you have? There's a lot that goes on out here. First and foremost, we have a commitment to the safety of the passengers and the integrity of the airport. And for that, we have the FAA. And we have a series of regulations that we have to follow just on the safety and integrity of the airport, the aeronautical side, the markings, and so forth. Then on top of that, you've got the security aspects of it, which we're a regulated entity, and we have an awful lot to do in conjunction with the airlines and the police. We have our own fire department. We have pretty much our own police department. We run our own parking lots. We are responsible for all of the businesses on the airport, the rental cars, the concessions, everything you see and touch at the airport we're responsible for. And that's before you get to the construction. The construction is just a whole other animal on top of that. And we're working to constantly improve the airport. That's where you get into grants and funding. And so there's a whole lot that goes on behind the scenes that the people never see. And if we do our jobs right, they never have to think about it.
What's the estimated economic impact of the Little Rock Airport in terms of the regional economy and what all it has to contribute?
2 years ago, the State Department of Aeronautics hired a consultant, and they did a study to determine exactly that for each airport in the state. Little Rock's impact far and away was the highest at $1.5 billion per year.
So explain to me how that kind of trickles down. You're talking about direct and indirect economic impact. What's the indirect, I guess, the impact of that?
Well, we have tenants here that hire folks. You've got Central, Supermarine, which is coming out of the ground now. Of course, you've got Host here, and of course our parking operation. And then you've got Hawker, and then you have Dassault. Hawker and Dassault combined have more employees than anybody else on the airport combined, including us. So total that we have about 1,800 employees on the airport, but those two operations have about 4,000 employees. And as you may know, aerospace is a #1 export out of the state of Arkansas, and that happens here, and both Hawker and in Dassault.
So you have businesses that rent space here at the airport. You also have the airlines that, in effect, rent space here to have their passenger service opportunities. So how much is in your control and how much is not in your control in terms of the future of the airport?
Well, there's quite a bit that's in your control, and there's some things that are not in your control. Everyone is here for one reason and one reason alone, and that's because they have an opportunity to make money. Our responsibility is to make sure that they can continue to be successful, because when they're successful, we're successful. Think of it as a mall, where you're the landlord and you operate the mall, then you have the businesses inside the mall. You don't necessarily tell them what to sell, how to price it, and so forth, but you do create an environment that controls some of that. So a lot of that we control. Clearly on the aeronautical side, all the aeronautical services are 100% within our control and responsibility under the regulations. The security is 100% in our control. And how we do that in construction has a direct bearing on what we ultimately charge the airlines and the other tenants, and ultimately what they trickle on to the passengers. So we do a very good job of that, and we're always looking to do a better job as time goes on.
Well, let's talk about, I want to talk about the future and where you see some things going. I want to talk about what's happening right now in terms of the economic recession that everybody is experiencing. First of all, we know enplanements are down.
Yes,
People boarding planes are down. That's just a function of travel being cut back, whether that's personal or business. Explain that phenomenon to me, but what else are you seeing in terms of the recession impacting the airport?
What we're seeing is that people's behaviors are a little bit different than what they were before the recession. Let me explain that for a moment. You're right, passenger traffic is down in Little Rock. Last year, We were down 6.1, 6.2%. We're down about 8% so far this year, which is tracking with what we predicted, what we estimated and forecasted it would be. But that's a lot less than other airports in the nation. Many airports are down 10, 15, 20%. And we're doing well. And one of the reasons why we're doing well is because the airport is where it's located from a geographic standpoint. It's in the center of the state. Also, another reason why we're doing well is because many other airports have lost their air service. Hot Springs, El Dorado, Harrison, Jonesboro, a lot of those airports have lost their air service altogether, and so we're pulling passengers in from those areas. One of the benefits of Little Rock is we have about a 91% containment rate, which means that 91% of the people who fly out of the state of Arkansas fly out of Little Rock. Because we're a lower cost airport and have lower cost airlines than Memphis, we also draw people from Memphis as well. And that's an area we're particularly focusing on and see how we can continue to do that. In terms of the behavior of the people, what we're finding is that people may be taking fewer trips, but when they do take a trip, they're staying longer, or what they're doing is they're combining business and pleasure.
What are you going to capitalize on in terms of what you're seeing, these trends that you're seeing, the behavior that you're seeing? Where do you smell an opportunity for the airport to take advantage of current conditions?
Well, one of the things that we've had to do is since June of last year, we've had to take a long, hard look at all of our expenses and look at how we buy things and why we buy things. And we've cut that back significantly. We've gotten a lot smarter in terms of how we do business. We've had a number of vacant positions that we've kept open that we've frozen. We're not going to fill those right now. And so it's really making us, I think, at the end of the day, a little bit stronger financially because of those cuts that we've made. I'll give you, for instance, it's public information through the first quarter. When you take a look at our revenue and then you also take a look at our expenses, our net revenue, and when you look at our operating profit in terms of what we spend versus what comes in, is up about $400,000.
Airports are mammoth operations. They're not something that you do have a 1-year plan, but you also have to think out much further beyond 1 year, 5 years, 10 years down the road. What's the Little Rock Airport going to look like 5, 10 years from now?
5 years from now, I'd like to think that we'll have an international operation at the airport. There are a number of things that we have to do now in order to make room for that. But within the next 5 years, we'd like to build a customs immigrations facility so that we can offer international service. I think that's the next logical step for us. As we currently sit here, we look at just domestic destinations. Well, in this global market, that's a small piece of the pie. We want to talk about Mexico, we want to talk about Canada, Central America, as well as the Caribbean. And until we get an FIS up and running, we are really not in the position to talk about those things. So that's something we're looking at real hard, working with some of the commissioners, working with the Mexican consulate. So we'll see how that develops as we go forward. Within the next 2 years, the machines will be out of the lobby. The lobby will be completely renovated. It will look kind of like it did before 9/11. There'll be a complete backdoor operation and will be imperceivable to the customers. The checkpoint will be expanded, and we're going to do a big technology upgrade in the facility. That's over the next 2 years and 5 years. We have a 5-year construction plan with the FAA. But beyond that, the Commission is looking out 10, 15, and 20 years in terms of the new terminal or the renovated terminal and how we're going to fund that terminal and how we're going to build it and everything else. So we're looking at short run, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10, 20 year, all the time.